The second part of the Chapter 6 test, where you can use your graphing calculator, we'll have questions dealing with solving a system of equations by any method, solve a system from a question, create a transition diagram, and maximize or minimize a product of some sort. And then also questions from previous material, just like from the first part of the test. Now, as far as solving a system by any method, could be something like that, and where you have to you could graph it, or you can solve it another way if you want to, substitution, elimination. Mm, So now we are going to get into the solving a system of equations given a question. So here we have Gene and Ray and Henry go out to eat. Gene orders 2 portions of chicken fried rice and 1 egg roll. So we'll call the chicken fried rice X, egg roll Y. Ray orders 1 chicken fried rice, 1 egg roll, and also a portion of General Tso's chicken. And Henry orders 1 portion, so that's a Z, and 2 of these, so that would be a Y. So then our first equation is going to be 2x plus y equals, and Gene spent $5. For Ray, he had one of everything. So that, and he spent $5.25. And Henry had 2 of Z, or no, 1 of Z. Sorry. 2y, and he spent $5.75. And then you need to solve this for x, y, and z. So here you have x and y, here you have x, y, and z, and here you have y and z. So somehow you either have to get rid of a z or you have to get rid of an x, which would be the easiest thing to do. And so if we take this one and multiply it by a -1, then we would get a -2y, a -z, and a -575. And then if we combine that with that equation there, you would have x minus y equals a -0.5. And then you have 2x plus y equals 5. And so combining these two, because they both have their opposite y's, adding this up, 3x is going to equal 4.50. Or 4.5 if you don't want to write the 0. I suppose you don't have to at this point in time. And then divide by 3. And x is going to be 1.5. Now that you know that x is 1.5, you can substitute it into one of the equations to figure out y. And we're going to go into this one right here. So we would have 1.5 minus y equals a -0.5. And then subtract 1.5 and get the opposite of y equals a -2. And then y is equal to 2. And finally, you can put that into either one of the equations to figure out what z is. And z, if we're going to use this equation, you would have 2 times 2 plus z equals 5.75. And that is 4 plus z equals 5.75. And if we subtract 4, we get z is equal to 1.75. And so now, because this is a question and actually has some real meaning to it, you need to state your answer. So the chicken fried rice will cost $1.50. The egg roll cost is $2, and the General Tso's chicken will cost $1.75, and then you're done. All right then, moving on to the next question. Here we have a rental car company in Rochester has a second business in Minneapolis. At the end of each month, 1/8 of the cars in Rochester are dropped off in Minneapolis, and 1/12 of the cars in Minneapolis are left in Rochester. Draw a transition diagram to represent the situation. So we've got this circle and that circle, and this is the Rochester circle and the Minneapolis circle. And some cars are going from Rochester to Minneapolis, and some cars are going from Minneapolis to Rochester. So it says that 1/8 of the cars in Rochester are dropped off in Minneapolis. So this would be 1/8. And if 1/8 of the cars are leaving, 7/8 are staying here. And then it says that 1/12 of the cars in Minneapolis get left in Rochester. So there's 1/12. And if the 1/12 is leaving, 11/12 would be staying in Minneapolis. And so there's your diagram. Now then it asks you to put those into a matrix. So we make a 2x2 matrix. Rochester, Minneapolis. And the ones that are in Rochester that are staying would be 7/8 and 1/8 are leaving. And 1/12 are going from Minneapolis to Rochester, and 11/12 are going from Minneapolis and staying there. All right, so there's your transition matrix. Then it says if the company starts the year with 500 cars in each location, how many will there be after 1 month? So this would be in Rochester and Minneapolis. You would have 500 and 500. Now, using your calculator, you would enter those values in, and then you would do some multiplying. If you have and it depends on which one you have, you could call this one A and call this one B. Doesn't matter which you call them, you just got to make sure you do it in the right order. And remember, you have to take matrix A and multiply it by matrix B, because it's not possible to multiply that B by A. You'll get a dimension error or a dim error depending on your calculator. For a TI, that is how you would write it. For a Casio, you would write mat A times mat B. And you would get a matrix that would be 479.1 and 520.8. Well, now you can't have 0.8 of a car. None of them crashed or anything like that, so you would have to say then that 479 were in this one and 521 would be in that one. All right. Then to figure out the answer after 4 months, if you had a TI, then you would just have answer times B. Or if you're a Casio, you would say mat answer times mat B. When you hit the equal sign after typing that all in, this would give you your 2-month total. Then you just have to hit your equal sign again to get the 3-month total, and the equal sign one more time to get the 4th month, and you would get something like 439.2. And 560.7. I probably should change this color. And so then in the 4th month, you would say you would get 439 and 561. if the question were to ask what happens in the long run, well, now you just keep hitting your equal sign until you get to where it doesn't really change ever again, and that you are going to get 400 and 600. And that is how you do that. All right, then this last question for this part that we are going to look at: an office manager is purchasing file cabinets and wants to maximize storage space. The office has 80 square feet of floor space for the cabinets and 900 to spend. Cabinet A requires 3 square feet of floor space, has 12 cubic feet of storage space, and costs $75. Cabinet B requires 6 square feet of floor space, has 18 cubic feet of storage space, and costs $50. How many of each cabinet should be bought? Well, first thing you have to do is figure out what is your objective function going to be. And in this particular case, we are trying to maximize storage space. So storage space is equal to 12 cubic feet of storage space for part A, so 12 times X, and 18 cubic feet of storage space for B, so plus 18Y. So now everything has to relate to that as far as our constraints are concerned. That is the second part of it. What things are limiting us? Well, first off, you should know that X has to be greater than or equal to 0 because you can't have a negative amount of file cabinets. And same with Y. Has to be greater than or equal to 0. And then the rest of the information, I've tried to tell you all along, just make yourself a little table with all the information that you're given that's still left. Remember, this is X and this is Y, which is cabinet A and cabinet B. And if we look up here, the office has 80 square feet of floor space. So that has to be one here, floor space. And we have a total of 80 square feet. Now, what does it say about the two cabinets? Well, cabinet A requires 3 square feet, so that would be 3x. Cabinet B requires 6 square feet, so that would be 6y. So our equation then would become 3x plus 6y has to be less than or equal to 80. Because you can have at most 80. You could have 79 if you wanted to. All right. So then what else do we have here? And we have $900 to spend. So that would be our cash amount. And it says in here that cabinet A costs $75, so 75x. And cabinet B costs $50, so 50y. And there's no other information. And so we have 75x plus 50y is less than or equal to 900. So then you have to figure out what the feasible region is for our constraints. And if we're going to graph this, well, x is greater than or equal to 0 is this one. Y is greater than or equal to 0 is that one. And then if we go back here, in order to graph the blue one, we have to solve for y by subtracting 3x, and you get 6y is less than or equal to a negative 3x plus 80. Divide by 6. And y is going to be less than or equal to a negative 1/2 x plus 13 1/3. All right, and that's our blue one. And so if we graph that, 13 and a third is up here, so 2 fours, 10, 12, 13 and a third, and a negative 1/2, it's going down, so it's coming like this, somewhere. All right, then to figure out what side is going to be shaded on that particular one, if you go back to the original and substitute a 0 and a 0 in, because that's a coordinate that's on the coordinate system, and 0 and 0 is less than 80. That is true, so therefore we will be shading in that direction. Okay, then the other equation, we have to solve this one for y as well, so we subtract and we would get 50y is less than or equal to a negative 75x plus 900. Divide yourself by 50, and y is less than or equal to a negative 3/2 x plus 18. And so then graphing that, and we're going to be up there, and it's going to come down like so and be like that, I do believe. All right, now this isn't all that accurate and everything, but here's where your graphing calculator would come into play, and then you can graph these things. Now this is going to go, and this line here is extending up here, and this intersection point, yeah, that's a bad line, I'm just showing, that intersection point there is 0, 13 and 1/3. This intersection point down here is 0, 0. Oh, and before we do that, we should go back and we got to check to see which side we're shading on the red one. And if we put a 0 here and a 0 there, that's less than or equal to 900. So therefore, we are going to shade below this line as well. So our figure looks like that, to over there, to this, and then to that. And so we have this coordinate, that coordinate, this one, and that one. All right, and this is our red line, which was the plus 13, no, plus 18. Negative 3/2 x plus 18. This line here was the negative 1/2 x plus 13 and 1/3. Okay, so like I said, that's 0, 0. This coordinate over here, it's crossing the y or x-axis, so the y value is 0. You have to figure out what the x value is. Well, this is the red line, so if you put in and solve that, put a 0 in for y and solve that, you'd get a negative 18 equals a negative 3/2 x. Well, now if you divide by a negative 3/2 or multiply by a negative 2/3, because that's the same thing, negative 18 times a negative 2/3 is 12. So that coordinate is 12, 0. Here we have 0, 13 and a third. Then you're going to have to take your handy dandy calculator, put in this equation here, put in that equation there to figure out that intersection point, which is 4 2/3, comma, 11. All right, and like I said, you're shading this whole area here. So now, because we're dealing with file cabinets, you cannot have 13 and 1/3 file cabinets. You either have to have 13 or 14. Well, if you have 14 file cabinets and none of that type, you're outside of your shaded region. So the best you can do here is 0, 13. Here at this point, you have 4 2/3, comma, 11. So you're going to have to pick some values around that place, which 411 is one that works. If you try 5, 10 is a value that would work that's in the shaded region. And let's see what other ones are there. 3, you can't get to 12 because 312 is outside of it, so it's also 311. And then I think that's about it. Oh, you could try 6, and I think you can get to 9. So those are some points around that area that are going to work. So now we should try this one, 12, 0, and then all of these to figure out which one is going to be the one that is correct. Had this coordinate here been a whole number, say it would have been 4, 11, then you would pick that point and you would only have to substitute 1, 2, 3, and 4 because a minimum or maximum would occur at a vertice unless it's not a whole number when you're dealing with real things like file cabinets. So then our maximum storage space function was 12x plus 18y. 12x plus 18y equals. So if we try 0 and 13, you would get 234. Don't think that's going to be enough, but you never know. So then if you put 0, 0 in, that is 0, and I know that one is not enough because 234 is bigger. Then if you try this one over here, which is 12, 0, that is going to be 144. That is not bigger than 234 either. All right, and so then if you try these other ones that are around 4 2/3 and 11, if you put in 3, 11, 4, 11, 5, 10, and 6, 9, then you would have these answers. At 311, you get 234 also. Hey, and isn't that the same as that? So now we have a choice. But 411 is 246, and 510 is 240, and 69 is 234. So the one that provides us with the maximum storage space is this one right here. So then we would have to say by, not buy as in see you later, or not, that isn't even see you later buy, that's the other buy. So let's see, we're going to go this buy. Hey, there you go. We would have to buy cabinet A, 4 of them, and cabinet B, 11 of them. And then you would be done. And that would be all of the questions that you will see on the graphing calculator part of the test, other than the ones from the previous material, which, like I said, you can look at chapter 5's video if you want to. Go back and look at the review assignment at all those problems after number 10, because those are some of the things that are going to be similar to what would be asked. All right, and you will be taking this test tomorrow.